Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, and I think you guys all know me. I'm Liz Adams from CRL Associates. Maria had a flat tire and has gotten that repaired, but then has just found out another little thing she has to deal with, so she's doing her best to get here, but I wanted to get started because I know it's cold outside and everybody is going to want to head home here fairly soon. So because we have a few people that have some time constraints tonight, we're going to flop the agenda a little bit here. I'm going to ask Jocelyn Hiddle from CSU to give a quick report in conjunction with Drew Dutcher. So if you guys want to start on that, that would be great. And, oh, microphone. So I'll bring that around to you. Oh.
It's right there.
But we don't have, you know what, guys? Until Juan gets here, we may go without the microphones.
Okay.
If that's okay. Although it might help with the recording. So go ahead with the microphone.
I don't have Armando here to test it for me. You guys can hear me though. Yeah. Okay. So just wanted to report out quickly on a retreat that CSU hosted last week. It was a retreat for EOC members and some outside guests that Amy Parsons with CSU invited to come and give us some perspectives on potential future programming for the National Western Center. So the idea of the retreat was to really focus on what are the big picture programmatic ideas and how can we frame those and tell a consistent story about them so that as we are going to funders or foundations or new partners, we can say we anticipate that the types of programs we're going to be offering are X, Y, and Z, and get people really excited about what we're going to be doing. So Drew is going to talk a little bit about the retreat as well because he sits on the EOC, he was there. But a few things I'll just highlight is that we had sort of 7 areas that we were looking at, things like education, entertainment, and sports, 7 different kind of categories of programmatic work, and then we had a few people speak on those different areas just to kind of give a little inspiration. I think Drew's going to touch on that a little bit more, but what I personally found really inspiring about that was how much we are really thinking about global impact. That we've been the stock show has been in this location and has had a real local impact and a regional impact and a national impact for 110 years. But we have this opportunity to really pivot to facing global problems and addressing global problems. And in fact, we don't really have much of a choice. So we have to face some of those challenges head on with the assets that we uniquely have here. The connection that we have to the land and the location, the connection that we have between urban audiences and rural audiences, the connections we can make between food and energy and water and health and all of these different components. And Drew, I think will talk a little bit more about this, but really sort of the holistic approach that we have available to us here at the stock show is unique and makes us uniquely suited to address some of those issues. So I'll stop talking now and let Drew give you some of his thoughts as our EOC rep.
Thanks, Jocelyn. I'll try to be brief because I thought it'd be good to maybe have a little discussion about some of these things. I was very honored to be asked to be at this retreat. It began Thursday evening and then it went all day last Friday. There were 3 speakers that I thought had things that were especially relevant. The first one was Sandra Cully. I'm not sure what she does, but
Sandra's a consultant who works in land use and particularly focuses on food and in sort of planning and real estate development.
yeah. So she showed examples from around the country that might be analogs or give us ideas about what might be happening, what might be possible at the National Western Center. Specifically, she talked about Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and how older established areas can be repurposed, industrial buildings can be reused, and we have a lot of that in Globeville or in Swansea, and that basically, one of the examples I think of is Project Angel Heart, which I think was I think most people, everyone would agree, a wonderful transformation. But she talked about creating places where people want to live and giving people a reason to visit. And in the case of food, it's about telling the whole story. It's not just the experience of eating. So that was Sandra. And then Tony Frank, the president of CSU, gave a very good 7-minute presentation that really summarized, went from global warming down to problems that we face, that I think everyone experiences. And he did it with statistics and numbers. There were two that really stood out for me. Number one, he said 92% of the world's population breathes polluted air. I'd also like to just point out that our zip code 80216 is the most polluted zip code in the state. But one thing that was very troubling that he cited is that 78% of high school graduates are not college ready. And this is something that really as a society we have to do something about. And I think it could begin here at the National Western and Global area Swansea. But one possibility is that maybe there are ag magnet schools in Global area Swansea, or that there's some facility for students from K-12 to begin to get aware and interested in science and technology. Also, Tony Frank made a very good point that it's not just about technology and science and engineering, but a lot of people move on in related fields in law and public policy to affect change. It's not everybody has to be a scientist. And then there was another professor from CSU named Mastek Arabi. He runs an institute at CSU called One Water Solutions. And he talked about many of the global problems that we all kind of know about, how our increasing population growth and urbanizations are putting pressure on infrastructure. And of course the Front Range we are experiencing very rapid growth and will over the next several decades. And one of the questions we have is how do we make our communities livable? But what I really took away from Mastek's talk was about how we really need to rethink our infrastructure systems. That we are currently operating under an old paradigm where we design everything separately. We have a water system, we have a transportation system, we have an energy system, we have a food production system. And that we need to start a new paradigm where systems are integrated. And he made one point which I think many people wrote down, that integration is the holy grail of sustainability. That really, all of these systems, and sustainability is not just making a water system work well, that everything has to be integrated or it's not really sustainability. And also he made the point, I think I'll just finish with this, that sustainability is really not just science and technology, it's really about culture and art. That's something that really we have to that's sort of where how we have to approach this, and we have to change the way we think. Actually, the last point I'll make is that one of the things the retreat brought out is that there will be programs run by the National Western and CSU and maybe the museums. But I think that there's the opportunity for the community, residents of Global area Swansea in these neighborhoods, to generate and even implement our own programming. So we have to think about what maybe we want or what kind of programs would we like to do. And I think we have partners with CSU and the National Western and the city that we have some opportunities here that we should take advantage of. So that's...
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Jocelyn or Drew about the retreat? Okay. Yep.
Go ahead, you go first. I would just,
Oh, here.
just to add pre-K to the K through 12.
Absolutely.
I'm always going to say that, just so you know.
Absolutely.
So I would just throw out something. The United Nations just passed what's called the New Urban Agenda. And this is something that they do every 20 years. It's been done twice before. And it's really setting new global standards around urban development. And I had the opportunity to be in Ecuador when this was being kind of finalized and kind of adopted. And one of the key conversations was about, and this is what made me think of it, Jocelyn, when you said, urban and rural. And this idea that, more of our population is going from rural to urban, and what does that mean? And yet, how do we tie these together? And so I just put it out there, and I'd be happy to send you a link, but if you just Google New Urban Agenda, United Nations, there's a whole, it's global standards that countries around the world have adopted to try to come to. And I just thought, from a programming standpoint, maybe not from the built environment side, but from a programming standpoint, it could be an interesting thing to just take a look at and think through, how we might weave some of what is happening from that global perspective into what we're doing here locally. So.
I think that's a great point, and I think one of the things that has also been on my mind a little bit recently is that as the global population continues to urbanize, that we will have more and more generations who did not. And a lot of us had a rural experience or have family members who were farmers or ranchers, right? And have some sort of memory or familial connection to agriculture and a more rural lifestyle. But as we have more and more generations who have not had that experience, we really have to bring that experience to them here so that we can continue to make that connection.
Great, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Yep.
Do I need to use the...
If you would, I think that would be helpful, and that way you don't have to raise your voice with your...
For those who remember, I probably sound like Tulu the Bankhead.
Way before my time.
Yeah, before my time too, but that's what the internet's about. So I just wanted to say on this integration and efficiency, the integration idea that efficiency, I think, is one of the real hallmarks of what the National Western Center project is going to be able to offer. And the Sustainability Advisory Committee, I don't know if some people, I missed the summit, but there was some really good conversation at the Sustainability Advisory Committee this last meeting. And I think having a little bit of farming in my background with my grandfather, the integration is really key, but it's kind of one of the traditional things that can be brought out with a driving concept of efficiency that I hope we can really see as innate to what's arrived at with technology and that kind of a thing. And I completely agree, as everyone knows, with programming arising from within the residential constituencies with a real close parallel to the incremental education in the schools and that kind of a thing. And I think that the concepts of informal education, I hope, can be interwoven along with a lot of the apprenticeship talk that's going on. So I just want to throw that out. And I have a question for Jocelyn. I had the impression that part of what this was for was to help the National Western get a focus to be able to have a message to raise the $50 million that they... Do you feel like there's any progress made in that direction?
Yes, I think so. I think, as you know, there is no shortage of ideas about what we could or should do here. I think the challenge we face is trying to focus on some. And I think we got from, I don't know, maybe 150 ideas down to 50 ideas, and we need to keep going. And I'm using those numbers metaphorically rather than accurately, but I think we still have some work to do to target those ideas even a little bit more. But I think we did make some progress and heard some direction.
Oh, I wanted to add one other last thing. It's connected to this holistically, because one of the CDOT had a summit, a transportation summit here a week or so. I don't know when it was. I can't remember. A couple weeks ago. And what was phenomenal, given what we're dealing with the I-70 and a lot of things that are going on, was this incredible recognition that within 10 years, people were saying, these heavy-duty people from the transportation world at the federal level were saying within 10 years we could be essentially thanks to the disruptors, they were using the term, like all these billionaires that were making electric cars, we could be in a whole nother reality. I mean, it's really coming, and it's coming fast. And for me, that's like a unifying factor with all the controversy over the side effects of the internal combustion engine. So anyway, I just, to me, this net zero and this whole thing that's happening with the National Western Center, given that Denver's really poised to show the country what can happen amidst all this sheer terror, that certain priorities are going to be abandoned, I think is phenomenal. So to me, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic while these tectonic changes are happening. So I just wanted to add, I mean, if people can see that, I think some of it's videotaped, but it's mind-blowing what we're about to. Were you there? Did you see it?
No,
you see
but
it? You know what I'm
yeah,
talking about?
absolutely.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Great, thanks. So here's the thing. We are on a tight time schedule for a couple more people that need to present. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Blake Angelo, who we've invited at our last meeting. Nikki Zeppelin, who is not here right now, unfortunately, brought up the issue of food availability in grocery stores in GES, especially with, and I always hate to say this, but with 7-Eleven going away. To me, 7-Eleven is not, an adequate form of fresh food for a community, but 7-Eleven will eventually be going away, and I think there's a concern in the community. So Blake Angelo is the manager of food system development. We've asked him to come, and I think what we'll do, because he has limited time, and then Kelly also has limited time, so what I'd like to do, Blake, is have you give just a quick update, and then maybe if everybody here has some questions, we might have you back to talk more about things or get more in depth on something. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us a quick update on what's happening, and then maybe we'll gather some questions and you can take those.
Do you want me to use the mic?
Yeah, if you would. I'll take this one.
Here, pass this around.
Oh, I'll grab that one.
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm glad you all made it here safely, and I hope you make it home safely, right? That might be the bigger test this evening. My name is Blake Angelo. I work for the Office of Economic Development. I am the manager of food systems development. It's the first time our city has had one of these strangely titled positions. There's actually about 27 of us nationwide now who, within the last 5 or 6 or so years, municipal governments have said, wow, we are getting a lot of comments from the public about food. And for some of our communities, that may look like more farmers markets and community gardens, but unfortunately, particularly in Denver, for a lot of our communities, it means a full-service grocery store. It means improved healthy food access. It means healthier corner stores. It means healthier school meals, and it has a dramatic tie-in to the way that we see our public health. And in Denver, I like to use the statistic because I think it's pretty shocking for a community that often considers ourselves pretty healthy, that actually over 1 in 2 adults are obese or overweight, and over 1 in 3 children are obese or overweight in Denver, in a healthy community or a healthier community. So we all know, I think, and have had conversations with folks that live in this community about how food access is one of the top, let's say top 5, at least perennially, challenges that the community here faces. So my job was created by the mayor in recognition that there is a lot of interest coming in from different neighborhood plans and public engagement sessions, but also that there were a lot of people already working on food. In fact, we've counted over 2,200 food businesses in the city and county of Denver and over 600 nonprofits that do something with food. So the last thing I wanted to do and we wanted to do was jump in and compete with nonprofits for limited resources, or try and duplicate or try and accidentally end up duplicating additional efforts. So the first thing that we were charged with was working on a citywide comprehensive plan or a strategic plan to address food system issues across the city. We've creatively called that the Denver Food Plan, and we'll have a public draft of that available for you this winter. It was informed through 11 community listening sessions, 1 in each of our 11 city council districts. We had one in Council District 9 as well in May of 2016. There were 27 participants at the Posner Center with Councilman Brooks as well. And we added that feedback to the existing plans and reports for the Globeville and Elyria Swansea neighborhood. We've read, analyzed, tried to understand the 10 plus studies, plans, reports that have already been done here. We've also participated in a number of the HIA working group, the Health Impact Assessment Implementation Working Group meetings. We've met with the Jim By Fund and the Dimmer Foundation as they did a few food system convenings in Globeville and Elyria Swansea. We also participated in the NDCC roundtable last September to really try and understand what was going on and hear the community voices before we just jumped in and tried to offer a program kind of out of nowhere. What I would say also is that the city has been working broadly on healthy food access issues since really about 2010 when the Denver Department of Environmental Health convened the Denver Fresh Group. Food retail expansion to support health is what FRESH means, and that led to the creation of the Fresh Food Financing Fund, which was about $8 million to help bring retailers into neighborhoods that needed it. And unfortunately, those dollars haven't moved as quickly as we would want to see. And that's a statewide fund. And even statewide, those dollars haven't moved as quickly as we'd like to see to bring new communities together. So we've looked at two different programs, and I said I'd go quick. Well, Liz said I'd go quick. I never did. But I'll try to go quick here. There's two different programs that we've tried to bring in order to help advance the communities what we have understood and heard from the community as the priority around healthy food. One was that we applied for the Local Food, Local Places Award. That was co-offered by the federal government, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. The Treasury was actually involved. I know I'm forgetting some because there were so many federal agencies, but this was a real opportunity for us to get some technical assistance with those agencies working together to identify how the federal government could make investments that supported the community's desires here in Globeville and Elyria Swansea. So we actually met in this room on August 12th with community stakeholders to try and continue to understand and refine our understanding of priorities. We came up with two high-level priorities. One was to continue supporting existing food businesses within the community and said actually they don't have to just be food retail businesses, but food businesses broadly are helping build jobs, they're helping create a culture of healthy eating, and there's some really cool examples of business incubators and other business support services that could be done here. And the second goal was to look specifically at healthy food retail and say, okay, how do we continue working to recruit full service grocery stores, but understanding that that may not be immediate, right? We've had these millions of dollars available for years. How do we also help do additional healthy corner store conversions? How do we help those businesses that are going to be displaced by the development here relocate, and ideally relocate within Globeville and Elyria Swansea? And that report, unfortunately, 3 months later, still hasn't been provided to me. But I'm hoping it's because they're doing the hard work of going to all these different federal agencies. We pushed them very hard to do this, to actually get commitments. Like, where can your money come in? Not what website do we look at to identify federal grants. Like, where is your agency actually going to be able to help the residents in Globeville and Elyria Swansea advance these healthy food goals? And we pushed them very, very hard on that, much to their chagrin. The other thing I want to talk about is the Globeville Elyria Swansea Healthy Food Challenge, which my office, the Office of Economic Development, did release. That included two parts. It included a loan part and a grant part. The loan parts is $1 million. The grant part is $250,000 to support healthy food in Globeville and Elyria Swansea. The loan part came from a collaboration of OED, CHAFA, Colorado Housing Finance Authority, and the Colorado Fresh Food Financing Fund, CO4F, Colorado Enterprise Fund, and the Colorado Department of Transportation. So, okay, together, we really like to help ensure that retail can move into the Globeville and Elyria Swansea neighborhoods. The challenge that we've had there is like some of our other loan buckets, that we haven't had people come to us and say we want to take a loan to put a store in these communities. So we have tried to do a loan grant mix in order to help shift the financing, but the numbers still haven't worked. So actually, I'm here in big part to ask for your help in that, and I could use your help in 2 different ways at least. One is when people are talking about healthy food access and the desire to see it, it would be great to know if there are retailers or people who are entrepreneurs and would like to start retail and could work with our office, could take a look at some of the different opportunities that are in the Globeville and Elyria Swansea neighborhoods, that maybe we could use some of our existing small business supports to help, or our grant and loan support. And I just do need to be very honest and continue to say it's grant and loan. We can't make the grant without making the loan, because the idea is that the grant helps buy down the cost of the loan, but the business has to be loan ready, which I know is a real challenge. So we also did release just the grant portion of the fund, so there was an additional $250,000, and that went in 3 different strategies in the RFP. One was for healthy food education, and the idea there is that a number of people maybe don't feel comfortable buying healthy food, or they think healthy food has to be more expensive, or maybe they don't even know how to cook healthy food. And so the Grow House applied and was awarded funds to do a door-to-door promotora program, to actually go door-to-door, ask people what they'd like to know about in terms of cooking and healthy eating, and then developing and deploying a curriculum to help folks get there. And then we also help support Focus Points and the Comal Kitchen Incubator, which some of you may know of. A number of residents are participating in that. We'd of course like to see more, but the idea there was, how do we support some of those existing food businesses and continue to help increase incomes and address some of those very real and tangible challenges for healthy food access. The third part of our strategy, we had 0 people apply for, which were technical assistance providers to community healthy food retailers. Because we understand that even though we've got a healthy corner store program through our city, it takes a little bit more. It takes a little bit more business assistance. Because what I like to say is, I wouldn't be in a position of trying to buy a tomato or an onion from the store that I get cigarettes and chips from. I just wouldn't think about it. It wouldn't cross my mind that my cigarette store was where I wanted to get fresh food. And so there is a large business technical assistance and rebranding component that just needed a little more than we were able to give through our existing corner store program. So those funds are still available. We're still looking for provider partners to help bring that additional technical assistance to help those corner stores or other fresh food retail ideas be successful in the interim. So in conclusion, we are still working with our financial partners to offer these funds. I would love your help to look for sites, to look for business entrepreneurs who are interested, and really keep our kind of legs and eyes and ears on the ground to help identify some of, I spend my time all across the city. We try to get to know Globeville and Elyria Swansea like we do our other neighborhoods, by actually driving, by walking, by going into the corner stores. I talk to every single one of the healthy food or potentially healthy food retailers that I've found in the neighborhood and dropped off my business card. I've asked them if they'd like to expand their selection of healthy foods to get in touch with the city so that we can help. And I'd ask you to help reinforce that message as part of the CAC. The other thing, as I will say, is we're going to continue to refine our active recruitment of grocery stores by identifying and packaging the sites we have, the incentives we have, and then pushing through some national market channels to continue saying, we've got this money available, we've still got this money available, we've got certain incentives available that we'd like to use to help. And we continue to seek other opportunities to bring in special revenues or grants from the health foundations or others that would help us deploy some of these programs immediately. We do continue to fund annually through OED's Notice of Funding Availability food-related projects in the community, in Globeville and Swansea as one of our target neighborhoods, and healthy food investments as one of our target criteria. That happens every year. We release it in about August, and would encourage you all, particularly if you're thinking about maybe working with a nonprofit or advancing something that can't do the loan plus grant and needs just the grant, to really consider that notice of funding availability one of the best opportunities for OED to help make that investment. Be happy to talk with you about that as well. So that was maybe not so quick, but hopefully a little comprehensive, so you have an idea about where we're coming from.
Okay, so do we have some, so I think what we'll need to do is to ask some quick questions if we can, because I know that Blake has to step out, but we can also collect some questions and maybe even have him come back to talk more if we want to do that. So any initial questions?
Yeah, that's all right. I would just suggest that we have him come back because I got all kinds of notions and ideas just hearing him talk,
Okay.
and it'd take too much time this evening.
Great,
So-
okay. Well, how about that as an introduction, and then Blake will find a spot for you in one of our next
Maybe
agendas?
sometime around spring planting time.
All right, is there any, Meggie, go ahead.
Have you talked to Natural Foods at all? They're doing a grocery store, and it seems that they could do an adjunct with foods that really the neighborhood wants that aren't otherwise available. And they're building now to basically at least create a section or two that would appeal to the neighborhood. It does have access. Have you talked to them at all?
So we have talked to natural grocers along with Kroger and Safeway, and even really done an aggressive push for other retailers in Colorado that aren't yet in the Denver market and might be interested. So we've talked to Lucky's Market, we've talked to markets out of Pueblo, and all other small chains that we thought may make a really strong entry into the market. At this point, what we will continue doing, and they will be really the first to receive this package of our finance plus the different incentives that we can offer. But yeah, we've got pretty good connections with natural grocers.
The reason I'm suggesting them is they're right here in the neighborhood, and it's a natural, and I think they would appreciate expanding their business, and they're under construction now, so it may be an easier fix than going to Kings or any of those.
Okay, thank you.
I want to add a quick thing.
Go ahead, John.
Along those lines, I think you need to be aware that in these neighborhoods, there's panaderias, carnicerias, y taquerias, and they're not totally in conjunction with natural foods, but some of the best damn natural food I've had comes out of those places. So that's a cultural thing, and that has to be addressed down the line.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things in this entire neighborhood, and we got to deal with it later on, so.
Well, I appreciate that, and when I did my tour of places that sold healthy foods, I went to the carnicerias and the panderias and had conversations with them about the potential to help expand their businesses as well. So I would love to see folks in the community continue to expand to new sites or on-site and be a real tool and asset.
That's why I think we've got to come back down the line.
Yep, so we'll make sure we do that. Vern, is it okay if we, is your question a quick question? Because I do need to give Kelly at least 5 minutes before he has to go.
Well, I don't think we'll be able to kind of get too far with this. And
Okay.
I think it could get really in depth. So.
Great, so let's have a return visit, Blake. That would be great. I just want to make sure we were responding, and now we've got it on the radar, so we can do it again. So thank you so much for coming. Kelly, I know that you have to go, but I know you have some highlights you want to give us, and then we're happy to fill in with a few other things if you need us to.
Thanks. So one, I just want to build on Jocelyn and Drew and AE's comments on the sustainability in particular. So we are one of 6 cities that have been awarded a U.S. Department of Energy partnership grant around new building, Zero Energy District Accelerator. It's a new program out of the Obama administration. There was a quick turnaround on that grant, and again, Denver was only one of 6, and we were the only city of 6 that actually were awarded two kind of slots, one for the National Western and one for Sun Valley. So there's resources that come with that through the U.S. DOE and expertise, and I want to specifically call out I think two of the reasons we got the grant was, one, our growing relationship with the National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden. We're building that relationship between this project and them in particular. The second is Barbara Frommel, who's our strategic partnership director, and I went back to DC in February and met with USDA and DOE. And I can vividly remember the conversation we had with the person from DOA, just talking about our project and, you know, talking about our desire to partner with them. And he referenced this in a very loose way about this was coming. And literally weeks after that, we were in the queue for this grant, and we were awarded this partnership. So we will continue to obviously push for this, but it's a big deal. And when you think about the number of cities across the U.S., that Denver's only one of 6, and the only city that got 2. So good for all of us. The second is all of you have received the Cliff Notes version of our Next Gen Agribusiness Economic Development Study. We had an event last Thursday. AE was in attendance, as well as Drew. There's about 150 people in total that attended. And so this was a direct result of, back in November of 2014, Colorado State University issued a study about the value chain around food and food systems. You know, typically we talk about food in specific industries, grains, meats, right, vegetables, and then it breaks down into individual brands. What was really unique about that study is it really looked at the whole ecosystem of how we deliver food and the integration of both public and private in the delivery from raw product to end product. And it really started to propose and lay out how competitive Colorado was, not just nationally but globally, in terms of USDA grants. We're third, only behind California and Texas in grants issued by the USDA. We are third in patents, only behind Texas and California. So we punch well above our weight in terms of population. And that's the extended Front Range, basically from Fort Collins to Pueblo. Just between Denver and Fort Collins, there are 460 businesses that focus in and around not just agriculture, but agribusiness. And those are drone-related companies, software-related companies that play in the field of agriculture. So what we did is took that study and said, all right, how do we translate that, all those different things that Colorado could be competitive in, and start to translate it into job growth and workforce development. So this is the first in a series of studies the city will do around agribusiness, and the intent was to take the 13 clusters that CSU identified and really start to hone in about 5 or 6 industries. So water is a cluster, and there's all sorts of things that happen within water that we could really compete on a global scale. And so, you know, I don't need to read this. You can certainly read this. I would encourage you to look at the full executive summary is about 20-some pages. All of it's been posted online. We can certainly get you copies. The full report's about 150 pages in length. But what it basically said, we had a series of panels. The mayor opened the conversation, and we will be posting the video. Channel 8 recorded the video the whole day for us, and I would especially encourage you to watch the mayor's opening. And what the mayor basically said is he challenged us. He said, look, this stuff is going to get studied. It's going to get looked at. The businesses are going to locate somewhere. So why not Denver, and why not the National Western? And he noted specifically November 10th, which was the date of the event, as this launching point for this challenge. So we had a couple of panels. Tony Frank was a speaker. We had a speaker from McKinsey & Company, who's a world leader in kind of global food consulting. Laid out actually a really stark reality of what global warming is doing to our planet and the challenges we have in preparing for feeding 10 billion people by 2050. So long story short is Colorado's in a great place. How do we want to take advantage of the strengths that we have? And this report really starts to focus in on how we target resources to grow businesses and grow jobs. And so for this committee, and obviously for these communities, and global air response was referenced many, many times throughout this day. is what's the translation? So if we think about jobs and workforce development, how do we start to prepare both the existing workers and future workers for the jobs that will emerge as a result of bringing these businesses to Colorado? So, maybe what we could do is, you'll have a chance between now and maybe our meeting in January to look it over. We will be in a position to lay out what our next study looks like in 2017. But obviously growing the private sector in and around this campus is a really important component for its sustainability because we've got entertainment, we've got education, but we need the economic development side of this thing to really be the ground source for the fuel to make this work. And the report really hones in on that. So the mayor was very happy. I think all the participants, and I'd love to hear from Drew and AE, who I think were there all day. Ann was there, yeah, as well. We had, and I really want to call out that we catered the event in Kamal. The Kamal Kitchen catered our event. It was their first catered event.
Oh, wait a minute. They told us we hosted their first catering.
Oh, well, they told us we were the first. All right, so we've got a problem here. There's a problem in River City.
And ours was before November 10th.
Okay, we're on to that. All right, well, okay, we were the second, apparently. But it was everyone loved the food. I mean, so, this is all part of growing the pie, right? So it was a good day. Now to some bad news. Sorry, I got to close with bad news. Denver Rock Island Railroad. So as most of you know, one of the critical paths for this project is we have a short line rail that runs through this site. It's been the Mars family owns the rail company. They are an intermodal facility. So basically they pick up cars from the Burlington Northern, mainly the Burlington Northern, and then take those cars to individual businesses. They have about 18 miles of track in this region, both in Denver and Adams County. We have been very clear with them from day one about our intent, about our desire to spend a fair amount of money to improve their system through the site because rail is such a part of the history of the site. Long story short is, to date, we have been unsuccessful in coming to terms with them around a solution because they simply won't engage. Secondarily, and if Paul were here, Paul Andrews, they decided that they were just going to start putting rail track down on National Western owned property. So they are trespassing on National Western Stock Show property close to the river. There have been now a series of legal letters traded back and forth. I will tell you that the city's working closely with the National Western on this. The agreement between Denver Rock Island and the Western Stock Show is very clear. They are in violation of that agreement. And the stock show, because this impacts their ability to host the stock show, has a real financial impact on the event. So there will be, I'm hopeful that cooler heads prevail and that Tom Mars, who is the patriarch of that family and the owner of the company, that cooler heads prevail and that there is some resolution to this immediate issue that could impact the future stock show. But longer term, that we come to some resolution with them. Because unfortunately, the city's path is that we will now be forced to acquire one last business that lies on the site, a company called McDonald Farms that requires rail service. We did not intend to acquire that business and move that business because we thought it could coexist. But right now we are left and forced into a position to go now seek the acquisition of that business and move them out of Denver to another location. That will leave no businesses served by Denver Rock Island Railroad, and then we would go to the federal government and seek what's called adverse abandonment, which is a process through the rail administration, because Denver Rock Island would no longer have any businesses they serve within the National Western Stock Show footprint, and that we would then be able to get that rail removed in a kind of a forced way. And I want to be really clear about this, we do not want to have to do that. We want to coexist with these guys. We continue as early as this week. I think Paul has coffee with Forest Mars even this week. Jeff Steinberg, our head of real estate, had coffee with Forrest, the son. This is the son of Tom Mars, who runs the business, earlier this week. I'm really hopeful that cooler heads prevail, but I would tell you at this point, I think, and I would strongly recommend a letter from this committee to Tom Mars to let him know as a community how you feel about, there is a path here for us to coexist, for their business to remain in Denver, but that this abstinence or this adversity that they're creating unnecessarily is really not necessary. And that maybe hearing from you directly as a community might be helpful. But we are going to have a lot of folks reaching out to them, trying to convince them to come to some resolution. So anyway, I wish I had better news, but I don't. And unfortunately, this is a very expensive proposition for us and for the stock show when this moves into a legal forum. And these attorneys are very expensive to acquire. Anyway, I've said enough other than to say we're going to keep working really hard to try to get a resolution to this. And
Would that letter be relevant before the end of the year?
I think ideally if a letter could be in Tom Marr's hands before the end of the year, that would be very helpful.
Do you think Barb Frommel could do a draft?
Well, I think between Liz and Barb, they probably could work on a letter, yeah. And maybe we'd have Mr. Zappian deliver that letter to Tom Mars. I don't know, someone with
his home address.
So anyway, look, we've been.
I'll walk in with my old Spike Mall.
There we go. So I don't want to close with bad news. I'll actually close with a little bit of good news. Is we're building out our team. We've got a lot of procurements in the pipeline. You're going to start to see as early as this next year embedded team members now for reporting and project program management and campus placemaking all start to emerge in the first quarter of next year. And I'm as busy as 2014, 2015 was in doing the master plan. Get ready for another round of pretty intense planning in 2017 so that we can tee this project up for implementation starting in late 18, early 19. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Kelly. Does anybody have any quick questions for Kelly? Because he does have to go and do a child pickup.
Yep, child pickup.
Child pickup. Any questions for Kelly?
Just a comment, I think I would support a letter if we could draft on this, because I don't know, I assume we're not having a December meeting, or are we?
We're not. We talked about maybe a social event, but I think if you guys wanted to, direct us to draft a letter, we could send it out, have people take a look at it, and then kind of do with no objection. We would send it on behalf of the CAC. So if you want to do that, you certainly, we could do a straw poll here and just. Would you all be in favor of that? Is there anybody opposed to that? Great. Okay, so what we'll do then is we'll draft a letter. I'll work with Barb. We'll send it out to the CAC and ask for comment, and then we'll kind of get approval that way of the letters and go ahead and send it, because it would probably help before the end of the year, right, Kelly? Great. So I'll put that on my list of things to do. Perfect.
You're saying McDonald's may not have to go if we work this out, is that true?
If we work it out, they probably could stay. Yep. And they're a very important, they are a growing business.
Yeah.
What is the name of that business?
McDonald Farms, McDonald Farms is a misnomer. They actually process different waste streams. And then they get repackaged into other uses, is a way to describe what they do. So it's not a farm, I will tell you, it's not a farm.
It's a rendering company, is
Yes.
that? Okay, great. That was a really nice way of putting that, Kelly. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Kelly so he can be on his way? Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Awesome. Let's see. I know we've kind of gone out of order tonight. I apologize. And there are typos on the agenda. I also apologize for that. Let's see. So we go to the community representative reports. I think kind of October was a little bit of a quiet month. I know EOC, or November, EOC did not meet. Is that correct, Drew? You didn't meet this month? No, that would have been today. And you've given a report on their sheet. Do you have any other things you want to add? Any other issues?
No.
Okay. All right. And the COFAS didn't meet yet. I don't believe they keep delaying that because they're waiting for, I think, the reporting team to step up. And Armando sent his regrets. He had something to do this evening. And then AE, any program-related comments?
The program advisory subcommittee is still in limbo.
Okay.
But the best is yet to come. And I'd just like to remind people that the stock show did, and National Western did, work with EPAS to identify some facility availabilities. So that can happen, that can be used, and they're outlined coming out of the committee where there, as people think toward 2017, there are some venues that can be activated. So.
Great, perfect. Okay, and then let me just, oops, I skipped over a couple things. Let me go back to, we have a couple of partners, other partners here. We have Ron from National Western, and then we also have Nancy here from DMNS. So let's do it, Ron, quickly.
Sure. Just want to let everybody know that we do have the Fall Feast here this Saturday. So look forward to seeing hopefully some of you here. And we're just we're in full gear getting ready for stock show. It's coming up quick. We will actually have our pre-qualifiers that start before Christmas. Pre-dimmer starts right after Christmas, and then we'll go right into stock show after that.
Great. Okay.
And if anyone knows of anyone that's looking for work, we do have our employment office open, and it's open from 9 to 3 every day.
Good to know. Nancy?
Sorry, what time is the fall feast?
This weekend, I believe
11
it's 11 to
2.
2. Yeah.
Yep.
Both Saturday and Sunday, Ron?
No, just Saturday.
Saturday.
Yep. And Nancy, do you have any updates for us?
You know, I hope you all get over and see our extreme mammals exhibit. It's really fun. We also have a mummies exhibit that is, it's really interesting, makes you think about what it is to be human and death. It's about mummies both from Peru as well as from Egypt. I also just want to remind you all, like I do probably every time the mic comes my way, that we are always free to all school and organized youth groups. And if you have groups, if you have anyone that you would like to have do anything with us, please reach out to me. I'm on all these emails. You just email me or call me, and we would love to make things happen. I know it's not the time of year for a lot of fairs and festivals, but if things come up, just don't hesitate to call. We'd love to be out there doing things in the community. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Any questions for our partners? All right. We have Lindsay Sousa here from AECOM, and she's going to give us an update on the Elyria Swansea York East-West connectivity study. So that's what Todd asked me to put into the into the agenda. So well, there we go. Look at that. We'll let you go ahead, and hopefully that microphone is on for you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
I don't think it's
No.
on.
Yeah.
No? Should I just do it?
Thanks, Ron.
Oh, I see.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Yes, we did choose the longest name for a study ever. And as the process has evolved, we've called it the 47th in York study because that's really where we focused in. My name is Lindsay Sousa. I'm with AECOM. Emily Silverman is the City and County of Denver project manager. She couldn't make it tonight. I'm going to give you a brief overview of this study that we've started almost a year ago now, and many of you have heard this presentation. Actually, you're a part of our October public meeting that we just had to present this, so a little bit of a repeat. But we started this back in December in order to look at mobility across the UP Railroad in Elyria and Swansea. It really started with an analysis of I-70 north to 49th. But pretty quickly, as part of this process, we focused in on the crossing that exists out there today at 47th in York. There's a real need for to resolve issues out there in terms of trains that back up and block the intersection. This lower photo shows that pretty well. Of trains that there's a switching yard for UP further south toward downtown, and those trains block the intersection at different points in the day and for different lengths of time. And there are over 100 kids that attend Swansea Elementary that are trying to cross those tracks each day, and so they're blocked by the trains. And folks go down and use 46th under the highway, which isn't the safest situation either. So this has been thought about for some time. There was a study done back in 2004 that looked at grade separation of this intersection. So this graphic just shows that location in the context of the larger NDCC. The project location connects really well to the 47th Avenue bike lane, which is shown in the blue dashed line. This grade separation would provide nice continuity and connectivity for that. So our purpose of this study was really to look at east-west connectivity improvements, to improve safety, to improve access. Folks aren't just going to Swansea Elementary, they're also trying to access the library and focus points, the grow house. There's actually a number of destinations right around this intersection. So our approach, knowing that there are so many meetings that are going on concurrently with all the projects going on, our approach to outreach and community engagement was to start with small group meetings with Swansea Elementary, with Livewell, and others to really get hands-on feedback. So we took last spring transparencies of different design options and overlaid them on aerial maps and had a conversation about the trade-offs of building a grade separation at this location. It's a very constrained environment. This graphic here shows the 4 different quadrants, we called them, of potential crossing locations and landings for the bridge. So the northeast is owned by Denver Water. That southeast parcel is a vacant piece of land. On the southwest, that small triangle that says Public Service Company is Excel. And then on the northwest is commercial and residential and the grow house. So at every kind of point in which a bridge could touch down, it was a very challenging location. So we went through the process last spring and summer of looking at a number of different options. This looks a bit like a spaghetti of different options, but this was our approach to really looking at all different sorts of ramp and stair configurations across the railroad tracks near this intersection of 47th and York. And I should note that we pretty quickly, through the screening process, focused in on an overpass. The study that I mentioned that was done back in 2004 looked at grade crossing improvements at this location, and as part of that there were some specific recommendations about fencing along the railroad in order to channel pedestrians, and then turning York Lane into a one-way and widening sidewalks. That all happened a few years back by the City and County of Denver as part of that, those original recommendations. That report also looked at a potential underpass for bikes and pedestrians, but there were a number of challenges to that in terms of cost and drainage and just safety of folks trying to access east-west through an underpass. So these options that you see here are bridge options. So this shows the preferred bridge location with ramps and stairs on either side. We did carry an elevator option through the process, but there are a number of challenges to elevators, one of which is really connectivity and easily connecting bikes and pedestrians. And so we focused in with this process on preference for ramps and stairs. I show the red dotted line and the red bubble here. So we've had numerous meetings with Excel Energy because they operate a gas line under 47th that our ramp would impact. And there's also a regulator station that services that line just south of 47th that would need to be moved. So there's been a lot of technical challenges with the project in terms of just focusing in on the utilities and working with the utilities to understand relocation that might be needed. One benefit to this concept is that it keeps York Lane open, which is that northern roadway here, which is an important access road for folks. It does minimize impacts to private properties, buildings, commercial and residential. So that's been one of the key priorities for this. This is by no means set in stone. It's a rendering that shows a potential configuration. These are stacked ramps, so a stacked helix configuration on either side. Very unique, but important in a constrained environment such as this. So the railings and such will be finessed over time, but this shows just kind of the scale of the concept. Here's another view of different points of it. So as I mentioned, we built on the study that was done in 2004. We are here at this point wrapping up a concept study this month, actually. The project will then move into preliminary design pretty quickly in 2017. The city does have funding to advance preliminary design for the project. And then following that process will be the final design, where the design gets firmed up, right-of-way is acquired, utility agreements all happen, and then construction would occur after that process. Funding is not yet set in stone. The city is pursuing multiple funding options for the project, so the construction timeframe in particular is dependent on the availability of that funding. So as I mentioned, we're wrapping up a concept design report that shows all of the different options that we looked at and this preferred option, and the city will immediately move into the design process once this is complete. So I'd love to hear your feedback on the design today, and I encourage you to attend future meetings because the city will host a number of meetings as the design proceeds in the coming months. So this is our report will be posted here, and we have a whole web page within the NWC-CAC page that can provide more info.
Great, thanks. Do you have questions? There's a microphone right next to you there, Vern.
I guess understanding the situations of the railroads and the way they react to it, what is the position of the railroad about this bridge?
Thank you for bringing that up. So we did meet with the UP Railroad to discuss the design option. So they have a number of requirements for a pedestrian and bicycle crossing. We have to be 26 feet in the air. So this bridge concept does meet that requirement. And we need to handle all drainage off-site so that we're not funneling drainage to them. But all in all, they were supportive of the design concept and would work with the city moving forward through the necessary agreements and such. So we're meeting their minimum requirements with the design and can proceed.
Great, another question? Patricia?
Could we see the design again? Yeah, that one. So have this design been used successfully elsewhere?
So the stacked helix concept has been used elsewhere in Kansas and in other states, and then we have national examples as well of this stacked configuration.
This is what runs through my mind. There's a train coming, and there's a kid standing there thinking, I can run across the tracks faster than I can climb up this. That's what's in my head.
And there's stairs as well that would be in part of the configuration, so that's also another route to take.
How long is that ramp?
So the ramp has to be 500 feet, which is a lot of ramp, because we have to get from 26 feet down to grade, and because we have to meet the 5% maximum for Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. So it just necessitates a lot of ramp.
No, I understand. I'm thinking like, a kid sometimes, and it looks big to me, and it looks like it takes effort, kind of. And I can run across that track faster than that train can get here.
Won't there be fences, though, blocking the track?
With the cars
not with the street.
Great connection.
Right, no, the at-grade connection would remain open, yeah. But at the same time, there's also the trains block the intersection. We've heard for up to 40 minutes at a time. And so, you would see use of the crossing in that situation because there really isn't another route to take.
So we have a couple, we've got John, AE, and then Ann.
They go first.
Okay, go ahead.
A couple questions. One, I'm assuming, Lindsay, that this is far less expensive than an elevator on either side.
The elevators are found to be pretty expensive
Yeah.
through recent city projects. And so we haven't done a full cost comparison, but it probably is pretty equal.
Because, an elevator might be a more simple way of getting a bicycle up there or kids up there or whatever.
But the challenge too is that bikes have to dismount and it's not a full, a fully continuous route too.
Correct. And then the other one is, does this connect to a bike path?
Yes, so 47th Avenue bike lanes this would connect directly to those, which extend west and east of here.
AE?
One quick thing to Patricia's valid concern. There's going to be, that kids right now are jumping between the railroad cars right now with the same mentality. But part of what goes with this is an orientation to readapt the usage of your space. And there's already a move on within kind of an extended network of people within the community and the neighborhood there and the school. There's going to definitely be reorientation and things like that. So that's a real valid concern. I think statistically, it's horrifying when you see these kids jumping between these trains. It's just horrifying. But that's valid. But the second thing I want to say, there's a direct line, just for history, between the passage of the Elyria-Swansea neighborhood plan and the first $200,000 that was allocated through the NDCC into the streets, which I think is what AECom was hired with. And I really, there's numerous people here that participated in the Elyria-Swansea plan. I was peripheral to that. But I think that is encouraging to remember that. And then lastly, the kids, I think the kids are going to respond just from some of the pushes that have been going on. I think the kids are going to love this as a novelty, but part of what I hope the NWC can step up and maybe leverage with this project is the potential of it being artistic. We're going to have trouble getting kids off there with their skateboards, for one thing, but there's always excitement. But there might be some way this can become a historic walk, something really artful. There's ways to work with it as a community project, so I just want to mention that.
Thank you.
AE brought the kid out in me. If I was that design, I'd be out there with a midnight bicycle race, skateboard race, and I'd make money. Betting one Swansea kids against Elyria kids. So, you're going to have some safeguards built in to deal with skateboarding and kids are kids. We all been kids at one time or another. And some of us don't want to be ever grow up. But safety. Those skateboards and bicycles, midnight races, they're going to happen. You're going to have to deal with that somehow.
Right.
And that's going to be a lot more dangerous to me than hopping over between cars. Of course, I was a little different because my dad worked on the railroad, so we knew how to do it. But safety, I think that's got to be one of your paramount. Because I don't want to see the city being sued down the line for some incident down there at midnight.
That's a good point. And lighting is very important too.
Very attractive.
Making it visible,
For nuisance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Oh, another question. You want to pass that mic down to Nancy, please? Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. I just wanted to follow up on AE's comment, and my guess is you're going to say it depends. But would this be eligible for public art funds?
Yes, it's 1% for public art.
And what is the total budget, and therefore what would the art budget look like?
We're still working on the cost estimate for the effort, but it would definitely be a requirement to have the 1% for public art, and then a landscape architecture fund as well as part of that. So,
great, thank you.
Yeah, and if I can just add in Colombia, in Medellin, Colombia, they have all these outdoor escalators through different neighborhoods as a way of getting people down the side of a mountain into job centers. And I was just there, and the public art that they had, basically, I mean the graffiti art, but street art that they had around a place like this was incredible. And it brought tourists into a neighborhood that never would have had tourism before because of the uniqueness of the elevators kind of up the, I'm sorry, escalators, not elevators, escalators, outdoor escalators up the side of the city, kind of sides, and then the art around it. So I think it's an excellent point, AE, and I think there's a really creative way to make it very unique and something the neighborhood can really be proud of.
Great, thanks. Are there other questions? Oh, John, go ahead.
Who owns the Union Pacific?
Warren Buffett.
The railroad company, UP
Yeah.
Railroad.
But who's the individual?
Who owns, who's the big cheese there?
The big cheese, I don't know.
Is that an Anschutz property?
Anschutz is at least part of it.
Anschutz? Well, of course, Jim Monahan's, he's gone now, but through Jim Monahan, we've had it. Maybe what I would do is a community letter to Mr. Anschutz. You know, he has, as I understand, like I say, Jim Monahan worked for him, but he's gone now, he passed away. He has somewhat of a social conscience at times. And I think, you know, flipping him a little bit might have him cut loose with some money or something, you know. Might be worth a try.
We've also heard that the UP has a foundation, and the city had mentioned that, so I think that's another source to pursue, but.
That who has a foundation?
The UP has a foundation. We don't have a sense for what they typically fund, but if they might contribute.
I don't know what former governor might be, I don't know if Roy Romer or Owens or Dick Lamb would be at least on conversational terms with Anschutz, but I think that tweaking him a little might pry something loose.
It'd be great if they can contribute.
Anna Jones is here, and I think we're talking about some people that might either be on her list or she's going to add.
Right. Well, and that's a good segue, actually. We do have Anna Jones here, and I think she wanted to make some comments. So, Anna, if you want to step up to the podium, that would be great. And does anybody have any other questions for Lindsay? You have no? Okay, great. Thank you, Lindsay, for taking the time tonight.
A comment for Anna. I heard that in 2001, $1.5 million was committed by UP, but then was never followed through with. So
I've been trying my best to get a productive conversation going with UP, but that is not going. That effort will not stop. But a couple of just to add on, and thanks so much, Lindsay, for coming out tonight to give this presentation. And your final report will be ready in mid-December, which is great. So the feasibility study will be behind us, and then we will move into the next phase of the study. But a couple of things I wanted just to add it on about this study. A couple things. One is we are commissioning a video to be made about the bridge so that when we go on additional funding asks, we have the visual to go along with it, because I think the picture truly paints says a thousand words in this instance. So we're putting that together, and but drum roll please, we did get some good news this week. Yesterday, we, as you all know, we did not get that FRA grant a while back. We did, however, apply for a TAP grant through CDOT, and that we found out was awarded $2.5 million grant. So, which is a terrific chunk of this effort, and we're really pleased of it. We still have a healthy gap, though, and we are hoping to certainly get all of your support, advance this through the GO bond process simultaneously while pursuing private individuals. John, good suggestions. And so really we want to have a 2 or 3 pronged strategy, all moving simultaneously towards fully funding this approximately $10 million project. So it's exciting, and I'm talking to Public Works. We're trying to figure out the most expeditious next step. But as you all know, it's the NWC-CAC's top priority, so we are going to move it forward. And again, while the grant is very exciting, it still leaves quite a gap. So, but we'll keep plugging away.
Drew?
And what is the TAP grant? What is that from CDOT?
It is let me see what does the acronym stand for? It is it's an FHWA grant and Transportation Alternatives Program grant.
What does it specifically have to be applied to in the process? The grant was, I haven't reread it since the award, but it basically.
Specifically one piece of it.
No, it's overall, yeah.
So it can be a reserve toward the total, in other words.
Right, it's not
Exactly.
Is that different?
But there are, of course, limitations on it when it has to be spent and et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, we have to have it spent by the end of the fiscal year 19, I believe. So, but, there's conditions on it, but it's still great news.
Okay, do you know how much it's for?
$2.5 million.
Excellent news, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, we're happy. We're happy to see some progress on this. Hey.
Am I correct that there's a $500,000 from the city that's paying for the next phase?
The NDCC is committed to moving into the next phase, and exactly what that looks like. What we're doing now. Chris Pacheco on our team is putting together a fairly detailed timeline. What happens when, and what's our best approach. So we're going to take a week or two to really, understand what the various options are and what looks the best.
And that does, and you might be able to answer, I think you talked, that next phase moves into the engineering a little bit more in addition to the design?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we have been thinking about this to date is that we go into 30% design, 30%, but what we'd like to do is initiate the design to a 30% and then know that what we can do is we have, the way the RFP is drafted now, it allows the design to go to 100%. So it'll be, of course, budget dependent.
Great, thanks. Any other questions for Anna? Thanks, Anna, for being here
Thanks.
tonight and bringing good news. We always love that.
Yeah, and a lot of snow out there. You guys, it's getting a little slick.
Is it? Okay. Well, we have one more agenda item left, and that was, as many of you recall at the last meeting, we had a brief discussion about the Denver general obligation bond and the fact that that process is now beginning. In fact, I think there's, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a meeting tonight. But there are other meetings, and there's also I believe, are we doing a cabinet in the community coming up? Is that?
Yeah,
That's this weekend. So Mickey, I believe, has a handout. It's coming around right now. And so, Mickey, if you want to just grab that microphone and just kind of review your thing. The idea was that they would come, a group met and talked about this issue and is now going to report back. And, you have some options after listening to this and discussing. You could, say, we want CSC to just offer its support for this if that's something that you want to do. So, Mickey, I'll let you go ahead.
I think it's important that we, as members of the community, really advocate for the needs we need in the bond issue. These bond issues come up every 10 years. The last one was in 2007, and unfortunately, little, if anything, really came to the Globeville, Elyria, Swansea area. So it's important that we really get active, attend these meetings, let people know what's important. The mayor, or basically the city's required every 6 years to put together a capital kind of program. It's described as kind of in that first paragraph. and it's essentially describes the areas of capital and cultural and all of the needs that might go in the bond issue. That document called Elevate 2020 is available on, I guess, through the city on your websites. But I've taken, the group really took the liberty of going through the Elevate 2020, which has already been prepared by the mayor's office, suggesting projects that should be considered. And the group went through and kind of picked ones that really impacted Elyria, Swansea, Globeville. And what I've handed out is some of the programs that are in the Elevate 2020 booklet. And the first one, and these are, we've discussed these at our meeting. The first one we talked about was Globeville Elyria Swansea Recreation Center. The Elevate 2020 had a $15 million budget for that. And I think the committee, and John can talk more to it, felt that really this area really needed a major recreational center, something like they have Colfax in York. And the need is not only great now, but will continue to be greater with basically this area developing and what Kelly talked about before, the agri-industrial groups basically being here. There's no real major regional community center that serves this area. In this bond issue, they suggested one for West Denver. And I think John was a strong advocate of the group of saying, no, $15 million is a drop in the bucket if we're going to do a major facility. Do you want to talk about that for a minute, John?
Well, across the room here sits a gentleman, Tracy Whedel, who lives over in Rhino. And I've been living up in the Globeville neighborhood for probably as long as Tracy is old. And as I look around the other faces here, I think we need to break our line of thought. We have Swansea Recreation Center, we used to have Johnson Rec Center, and the little Globeville Center and Stapleton Center. And those were splintered approaches to traditional organized recreation by the city Department of Parks and Recreation. We need to be thrust forward a generation or two and build a facility, a multi-use, for lack of a better term, I'd say a wellness center. We need to be thinking about healthy kids, healthy adults, and healthy older people, along with the traditional lines of recreation. 30-some years ago, when we started the River Trail, an idea came out about a bike ride, a jogging lane, to break the notion of organized traditional recreation out of recreation centers that were in some instances dominated by street gangs and neighborhood versus neighborhood. So a centralized recreation wellness center with all the amenities that different age groups need. You know, there'll never be Olympic swimmers coming out of this part of the city because we don't have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Older Americans, you know, they get old, aches and pains. You know, there should be some therapy pools and stuff like that. We need to get the city to start thinking in terms of non-traditional approaches to health and wellness centers while maintaining whatever recreational needs that the younger people and active adults need. And that's not going to happen with 10, 15, $20 million. This part of the city has been shortchanged for more than 50 years that I'm personally aware of, and much longer than that. The only reason Globeville was annexed into Denver was the promise of water back in the early 1900s. And since then, the city has neglected, let's be honest about it. They've neglected this part of the city for years. So I would ask for, upwards of $50 million, and I know we're not going to get it, but we need to start asking so they can start doing paybacks over the years that we've been ignored. And that might not be, a very acceptable manner approaching a budget, but a man just got elected the highest office in the land by using some tactics that some people thought were outrageous, but it happened. And I think that we got to start dealing with the city in terms of needs now, but more importantly, future needs. Because if we don't see where we came from, we're not ever going to see where we're going. And that's why I think it's important, it's crucial, and it not only benefits the people that are here and the people to come, but it changes the thought process of people in government downtown. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think we got to push and push and push for everything here. We're going to get it this year, but there'll be other people coming along to help in the next bond issue. So.
Well, the next bond issue is 10 years away, so I think we got to start now.
And then we'll have Tracy take it up next.
Drew?
Oh, John, I would just add that the regional rec center, I think, is justified in the health impact statement that was released, back during the neighborhood planning process. And Judy Montero made this point. She said that you could use this health impact assessment to argue for a regional rec center. There's a crying need for that, so it's justified on many grounds.
And with the Northside Park, we would certainly have the area really to build a facility like this, to utilize it both in connection with the recreation, to really get the park activated. And I think I think we need to really lobby for this kind of thing. Otherwise, 10 or 15 million for a regional center, it's not going to really do it. It's just really crumbs in terms of what's needed for this area.
And I appreciate the connection to the National Western Center and the possibility for equestrian trails, equestrian activities, and things like that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, during all of our early meetings when we talked about what the area wanted, it was always the horse, the equestrian. And this is an opportunity to at least introduce that somewhere where we could have trails. And there's a couple of other places in the book that come up in the bond that we could talk about it. But this is it just changes the whole attitude of not just newcomers, but certainly the people who are living here having a special place. So the next one we had was the Swansea Recreation Center. And again, I think we're not saying that there should be one big center. There needs to be these smaller centers, and we do support the fact that the city is, in the Elevate 20, acknowledged $10 million to really improve the Swansea Recreation Center. Anybody want to add anything on that? And for the Washington Street reconstruction, I guess it's almost laughable saying that they're allocating $2 million for the next 10 years for the Washington Street. Brighton Boulevard is was a $40 million project, and Washington is such a critical area. And Vern can talk a little bit more about Washington the necessity really to properly fund it and not, again, come up with a $2 million allocation.
Well, I would say that time being of the essence on Washington Street, notwithstanding the connectivity from the National Western, which is going to be going into Washington Street. Also, it's my understanding that Xcel Energy will be running a new gas pipeline, and the actual surveying has been taking place over the last 3 weeks on Washington, pretty substantial. Which would indicate to me that they're really looking hard at going ahead and running that gas line through there. Well, they're going to tear up Washington Street anyway to put this gas line in. So why not, at this point, since we're getting into this, redevelopment of that area, why not go ahead and move a lot of these things more forward so that during the time that they're going to put this gas line through, then we can go ahead and do handle a lot of the Washington Street issues all at one time rather than put a gas line through and tear it up a year or so later and start all over again, especially with the impact to the community. And then, also I agree with, $2 million is not going to address just the issues of Washington Street when we have all the little areas that spider off of Washington Street. It needs to be a study to encompass the entire area there and for redevelopment. And so with that, we really need to kind of move forward and maybe not allow this to drag along for a long period of time when projects are just coming to the forefront fairly quickly.
Vern, if I could just say on that Xcel gas pipeline, they were looking at 3 alternatives. One was Washington Street, one was Pennsylvania, and the other one, I believe, was Lincoln. And I believe that in my last conversation with Xcel, that they were not looking at Washington Street because of the upcoming Washington Street design study. But I can follow up with my contacts there, but I don't know if that pipeline is going down Washington Street. I just want to say this.
In any event, last meeting we had a presentation on Washington, which was pretty exciting to see how they were approaching it. And I think it was acknowledged that they don't have funding, and as interesting as the project might be, unless we get something like this, then Washington isn't going to happen. Again, it's kind of this area deferred and deferred and deferred, and I think it's time that we ante up money and do it right.
Regarding Xcel, Michael, I'm a little bothered to hear that because I think the alternative of running this gas line through a residential neighborhood is pretty. And I don't know why Xcel can't run that gas line down Washington. Why? Do we have any say in Xcel where that goes?
I can't speak on behalf of
Xcel.
Well, again, it kind of goes back to the situation of, the reason why we're bringing all this up in here is to ask the city. We're asking the National Western Citizens Advisory Committee. We're asking the NWC-CAC, to step up here and work with us on getting this stuff handled. It's not just, just us on our own. We have to look to you guys to kind of help us move this thing forward and do it in the sense that makes sense. And if it makes sense to put that, you're going to tear up Washington Street, maybe there's an offset of some of the cost to do Washington Street with Xcel. Okay, it's just good business sense, I would think.
The next one that really was in our area is the 38th and Blank. It's really more of a rhino area, and but the need for sidewalks in that area to spend the multi-millions of dollars and not have a sidewalk to get there, or pathways. And I think in looking at it, it really needs to connect to Globeville. Right now, there isn't a clear way to get to Globeville. at all. You have to either go down Washington or you need to cross Brighton Boulevard. It's a difficult excursion if you want to get to the light rail, and I think spending this money to basically provide a walkable and bikeable connection to that station is critical. You have something to add, Tracy, since it's your neighborhood?
No, I totally agree. I find myself at a loss when I kind of get to the station and I want to walk towards the north. It just feels like it's sort of an island almost. So I would agree with you.
And anybody else have anything on that?
You know, eventually, that underpass is gonna have to be replaced.
Where do we know that?
Yeah, I mean, and money's gotta come from someplace.
Yeah, I think they proposed something at the 2007 bond issue, and really they didn't do it when there was an opportunity, when they were building the tracks over there. So I don't think it's a realistic consideration to do that at this point.
No,
I think it's a necessity, but...
You sound like you work for the city now.
That was too good to pass up.
Yeah, thank God for small things.
It's like $40 million or something, that's
Yeah,
what I heard. Yeah,
I got it.
for the underpass.
Yeah.
That'd put a lot of people to work, though.
Yeah, sure would.
Well, we got about more than $1 billion in here, so we got some money to work with.
I'm working on a mural. It's a mural underpass.
So the next one, again, is a part of the same discussion in terms of connectivity and looking at some of the storm drainage, the crossings, and walkability and bikeability. So that was another thing that we all promoted. And
Nikki, do you have these defined, or is this something the city put forth for this?
these all come out of the Elevate 2020.
Okay.
And so I brought them up for discussion purposes. Some of them we've added our own notes, and I ask you to look at them. And at the next meeting that in the area is on the 9th of December. The 16th of December. 6th of December.
Tuesday, December 6th.
So it's important that you come there and you talk about these projects and projects that we need in this area, and just emphasize the fact that it's our turn. We need to make sure that we get that we are considered for these things. And I think that 47th and York, Bike Pay Bridge, isn't that what we just discussed?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
4.5 million.
some of that,
It'll be elevator for that.
some portion of that money to make that bridge happen is in order. And then the city had in there some amount of money for the cover over the bridge, and I think the committee concluded that that should be, if it ever happens, which some of us hope it doesn't, that we should be using bond money for that. It should be the Colorado State Transportation or somebody else. Why are we taking money that we should be using for projects in Globeville and building a cover? I mean, that should be, it just shouldn't be our responsibility, and I think that's what the group determined. Do you have something else to
Yeah, Nikki, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this cover, which is putting a Band-Aid on someone who's had their hair chopped off, is just really outrageous. I mean, this was supposed to be there as mitigation, and I'll just say the mitigation measures for I-70 so far have just been woefully inadequate. But to ask city taxpayers to pay for this, And the fact that this is not even a given in the I-70 project, that now we're supposed to cough up money for a cover, is just outrageous. I mean, that's just, why would we, I mean, that CDOT should be paying for that.
Well, and if it could impact the passing of the bond, we don't want that.
I mean, I would vote against it just on that.
Just because a lot of people
Mickey, did the city suggest this?
This is out of the Elevate 2020, it's a city suggestion. Then there's the improvements for the Elyria Swansea neighborhood park improvements, and I think everybody agrees they need to be done. I don't know that $1.8 million is adequate, but I think the committee agreed that definitely there should be money in there for that purpose. Any comments? And then the last thing that's in the Elevate 2020 is the urban greenway corridor going from 20th all the way to the end of the city limits. And that's critical. I mean, if the river is really going to function and really become a critical element of the city, then we need to develop that riverfront with a series of parks which we started and basically make the river really active and usable and create additional recreation area. We need to light the trails. There's nowhere in here is there any money that really says that the trail should be lit. There isn't even currently that I know of a single bench along the river. If you walk the river and decide you want to sit down, there's not one bench there. There needs to be resting spots, places, and it needs to encourage development along the river. It's a great asset, and I think that we essentially Globeville should be as the river flows from Globeville area Swansea. We should be the beneficiary of it, and we shouldn't really have to take just the stormwater and the negative, that we should really make sure that this money gets spent on those parkways.
May I? Along those lines, this was in 1973, 74. Dana Crawford and I, at that time, on that committee, put the trail through. And we emphasized benches, rest areas, picnic spots along the river for everyone to use. You know, the whole notion was to just get people out of the traditional recreation venues that had the Globeville, Swansea area small recreation centers, and you know, those were the times when gangs were pretty active in the different centers. So it's been a long time. We've asked for that, benches and rest spots and little picnic areas along there. The only thing we ended up getting was the gazebo at Globeville Landing, and now they want to tear it down. So I think we need to emphasize the importance the river has on the growing neighborhoods. Rhino, for example, you know, we need to emphasize that that is crucial and important for future development and for future enjoyment and use. So got to keep going on.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're really diminishing Globeville Landing Park and using it largely for drainage. It was a stopping off point. It was part of the Shoemaker plan, a critical part. That was the place where basically it was a landing. Actually, he took his boat and his people down there the river and they landed in Globeville Landing Park. But, you know, the very fact that, you know, we find the city willing to trade off a couple of playgrounds for really a park. So I think it's important that we emphasize that we see the development of the parks and the river along the way. So there were, these were things that were all in Elevate 2020.
I just think we have a process question here for Liz. We've got about 5 minutes. I'm not sure what we're doing because I want you to finish the report, and I'm not sure what we're doing, if we're just encouraging people to go, because I don't think that the NWC-CAC can take a position.
I think the important thing is we're really educating the people here as part of the community. National Western is really, in their mission statement, certainly adopted the improvements of Globeville. And whether we take a position tonight or not, or getting into that discussion is not the critical element. I think the important thing is that we need to go out and urge that the city basically take into account these kind of projects, which they at least put on the books and make sure they get done. And there are several other projects that we haven't even talked about that need to be considered in terms. They weren't listed in the 2020. And one of them is, there's nothing in here about the flood mitigation. We're still basically in a floodplain. There's no money allocated for levees or other ways of dealing with the flood. And we need to make sure that gets in there. I mean, right now, we are aggravating the situation with the Montclair Basin's waters. We are now technically, if not technically, literally in the floodplain. You need to build 4 feet up. You can't build. So there needs to be some money. Basically there was money previously allocated for flood control. We spent $20 million at one point or so to do it, and we need to make sure that money is not going down the river in there. So I think that's another area that totally has not been included in Elevate 2020 study. The other one, even though we talk about parks generally, and I think John has been a big advocate forever in terms of what we do with the parks, we haven't really looked at Heron Pond and cleaning it up. There's no money allocated toward that purpose. And those are two areas, and I encourage other people to look around and think what other things we need in this area. I think frequently we talk about, well, the city's not doing what they should, and yet when it comes to the specifics of what they can do and where we want them to spend money for our benefit, we're too silent, and I'm just encouraging everybody to make sure that you speak out. If you can't go to the meetings, then I think it's important that you write. And I don't want to get into a discussion as to whether this group should adopt the items here, but certainly I think it's important that we advocate for them.
Great. A, did you have a comment? And then
I just wanted to put, with the original discussion of doing this, and I appreciate what is here, and I took a step back from the participation in the subcommittee, partly because I felt like it was constructively general, but mainly what I was hoping that people on this committee would do would leverage the National Western Center Master Plan as a collaborative sort of build-out relative to what a capital fund can do. And I became very overwhelmed reading all of these documents and trying to feel that I confidently could step forward on certain things, and I'm still working on it. And within the neighborhoods, there's a lot of conversations going on that are somewhat in not conflict, but contrast to some of the ideas. Now, I totally agree with Mickey. Let's not talk about each individual one. The important thing is to be aware of it, and people, get out there and talk. But what I hope people on the Center Advisory Committee can do, if we can do this, is somehow convey the constructive synergy of this capital coming in almost to match the city's neglected obligation to elevate everything that's being done with these other resources. And the river to me is huge, and the park system is huge. The last thing I want to say is, and we had some discussion in one meeting I went to with the recreation centers. There is, I think, a strong feeling in the neighborhoods that the walkability to the neighborhood recreation centers is really important for the weave of the neighborhood, that kind of thing. Regional recreation centers are critical, but there could be ways to bring them all to state of the art. And I hope that we'll not, I agree regional is a conversation that's been happening, but I think there's also possibilities to really elevate more of the neighborhood networks of recreation centers. So anyway, as people go forward from the CAC, I hope we can have some conversations and going into these hearings about how this is absolutely complementary and needs to be supplemental to the other types of things we have money for on something like the CAC, or on the National Western Center.
Great. Does anybody have any other comments? Mickey, that was great. I feel really informed because I didn't know which items were in that report. And so I think that last page lists when the hearings are. Yes. Sure. Yep.
I just wanted to respond quickly if I could, to let you know that, none of this is lost on us for sure. We have spent a ton of time looking at all at the CIP, at the 6th year, at the 2020, at the Elevate 2020. Todd Wenskowski has been actively engaged internally for more than a year, advocating for many of the things you've just outlined. So that's all going on internally. Those are not, they're internal processes, and as they move through, there's not an opportunity that goes by that we're not advocating for these 3 neighborhoods. So just please rest assured that we're in lockstep with you guys, and we continue. We want to continue to do that, and also just to reiterate, the time is from 6 to 7:30 Tuesday, December 6th at Bruce Randolph. Please be sure to be there. And or send, your other representatives, because it's an important part of the process. Thanks.
Do you know if there's an allocated length that a person can address? Is it 2 minutes or 3? Do you know how that's?
Do you know, Michael?
Yeah, so how the meetings are set up is in 2-part. One, presentation from Tychus Holloway, who's the Deputy Project Manager in the Mayor's Office, followed by a presentation from Lisa, or not Lisa, but from Laura Perry, who runs the CIP process. And then after that, you go into what we call an open house, where you have parks, public works tables to really provide that input opportunity for residents.
Great. So, and the other thing, Mickey did bring it up. If you can't go, you can also email and communicate with your city council people, with all of those things as well. So I just thought I would throw that out there. I want to do a couple of quick, if we're done with that item and you're a couple moving on, a couple of housekeeping items. One, we decided not to have a December meeting. However, Maria would like to try to have a social event, and I'm going to work with her on that. And it might be just that we send out a quick invitation and we gather somewhere just in a social environment to, spend a little bit of holiday time together, because we don't get that time to just chat with each other, and sometimes that's nice. So that means that our next official meeting will be January 26, 2017. A couple of things, housekeeping from tonight. If you have additional questions for Blake that you would like him to address, if you would send those to me, I will send those on to him, and we'll see if we can get another presentation. Also, if there are other particular items that you would like to see on the agenda, special presentations or things that you would like to know about, if you would send those to me, and we'll try to work those into the agendas as we get into 2017. But understand, when we hit 2017, as Kelly said, we're going to start into placemaking and a lot of these things that are really integral to the project, and we want to have time to do those, but I also want to be able to catch the other things. So, are there any other questions from anybody? Issues? Seeing none, then I think we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thanks.